what drives the consumer to buy if, the AI discovers, again, like here's 3 shoes that have everything you want, reviews are great, there's very little difference. What would drive a consumer to buy one brand over the other if they're nearly identical products? Brand trust, like believing in creators. AI will change everything for marketers. As a brand, having a following that trusts you, that trusts your values, that trusts what you're building will become even more important.
Welcome to the Backcountry Marketing Podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Liz Esche. She is the head of marketing over at Mind Studio. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be back this time in a totally different industry.
You have jumped ship. Yeah. So last time you were on the show, I can't remember what episode number it was. You were in the industry, you were with Gnarly, and we were talking all about marketing through a rebrand and some of the challenges that you were facing there. But now you're no longer in the outdoor industry.
That is true. I did leave. It was a tough decision for a myriad of reasons, which might be a whole nother podcast. But I was excited to find myself in the tech industry for a creator economy company called Koji. Koji was recently acquired by Linktree, and the company that owned Koji put me on a new AI product called Mind Studio.
So we're going to be talking about AI, and to be honest, we haven't wanted to venture into these waters yet because I feel like AI is such an interesting, it's an interesting topic, and depending on who you ask, there's many heated feelings, and it seems like AI, it seems like it's blown up, and I think part of that's just because the world has become aware of ChatGPT. What was it, 3.5 or 3 that kind of broke the internet, or like everyone started to realize, oh, what is this thing? But I feel like, it's been a few months since AI has become a thing, and we do want to circle around and talk about this. And so I'm excited to have you on the show for this reason, because we're going to be talking about a variety of different pieces of the marketing industry and how you think AI is going to be impacting them. So we're going to be talking about content and SEO. We're going to be talking about websites. We're going to be talking about PR, gated versus ungated content, email marketing, the element of trust throughout all marketing, and then just kind of a few other pieces as well. But Liz, I'd love if you could kind of give us an opening statement on AI and include a little bit of a background of your company today and what you do in the AI world.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in the camp of AI will change everything for marketers. I'm not an engineer. I'm a marketer myself that, previously led teams in the outdoor industry and has now switched over to tech. So I can't speak at a level of, we're not here to break down all of the technology behind AI, but rather the areas that I see it being used by a lot of our customers. And what we do at Mind Studio is we actually live in the application layer of AI. So if we were to think of the different layers within AI. The first is the hardware layer. This is the actual the giant computers, the chips, and NVIDIA. This is like the hardware, and then we have the intelligence layer. This is where OpenAI lives, Anthropic, anyone building these large language models. They live in that intelligence layers, and then above that we have the application layer. So listeners might be familiar with Jasper AI. Copy AI, Writer is another one, and that's also where Mind Studio lives, in this area where you are taking these large models and actually applying them to your company. And with Mind Studio, we are a very flexible, no-code workflow builder, so anyone can come in and build workflows. You can essentially connect any platform, Slack, Discord, Trello, HubSpot, whatever your team uses, you can bring AI in with Mind Studio and start to run automated workflow processes and tasks for your team. So that's a little bit of where I come from.
So when we had connected before this conversation, you mentioned that the journalism around AI has been not very thorough. It's not been very helpful. Why is that? And could you mentioned that you think AI is going to change everything, and
Mhm.
we speak specifically to the outdoor world, but what's your perception on the landscape as a whole in today?
Yeah, so I think journalists, like the rest of the world, and when I say the rest of the world, I really mean it. Journalists, VCs, they are confused, they are befuddled, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. I think everyone's trying to rapidly catch up with what can this technology do, and how should we be controlling it, and is it trustworthy? And so we're seeing a lot of press that is just very hyperbolic. It's, you've got AI is going to destroy the world. And if you dive a little deeper, you and maybe take a couple beginner level AI courses, you realize, okay, we're not really quite there yet. This is predictive technology, especially if we're talking about GPT-4. This is predictive language models. It's predicting the next word. That's probably not going to destroy the world, not yet. Or we have on the other end, the very simple understanding of how to use GPT. And so you have a lot of LinkedIn influencers that are, their number one voice in AI, but you'd start researching their profile and they've been around for, 6 months, and they're kind of using the LinkedIn algorithm to get ahead of this new wave of interest. And they're telling everyone, here's the top 100 prompts you need. And we just, you need to copy and paste this prompt. And so then you have people like myself that work for AI companies and spend a lot of time listening and trying to understand very technical engineers. And I would say, okay, the prompt writing is a little bit silly. It's not quite doing what you can do with AI. It's like the first baby step, but expecting the next wave of AI usage to be everyone copying and pasting a bunch of prompts is really silly. But we're going to move past that super quickly. We already have. You shouldn't be engaging with AI that way. You should be engaging with AI as if it's, the back plumbing behind your enterprise or your business, and there are AI workflows and you can use these tools, but we shouldn't be copying and pasting prompts. So I see a lot of press that's like one direction or the other, and a lot of confusion in the middle. And that's really fair. And I feel for these journalists and everyone trying to catch up.
I don't know, the last 6 months or 8 months or so since ChatGPT has blown up, I've noticed a trend just in some of the software that we use. We would open up Adobe Premiere, we'd be working on a project, and then the next update that came out after ChatGPT blew up, like there was all these new AI tools. And they
Mm-hmm.
really weren't different tools, they were just being labeled as AI.
Yep.
And I'm curious if you can explain, like, what about ChatGPT was ChatGPT 3 that
Yep.
okay. So what about version 3 made us all obsessed with AI? And why do I now see it in every software that we use when it probably existed before, but now it's being labeled and it's being identified as like this new superpower?
So GPT 3, 3.5, 4 got significantly better. Prior to that, if you tried to interact with GPT-2, for example, the answers it would give are really obscure. So, for example, I'm currently, in the effort to try and keep up with my own team of taking an MIT AI course. And one of the things they have you do is interact with earlier versions of GPT and try to have it complete a thought for you. So, an example I had for an earlier version was I wrote a sentence that said, it was came to my mind because my friend had just told me she was having a baby, and so I wrote in this GPT, "I have a dog, and I'm having a baby. I'm concerned." Now, as a person, if I asked you, continue that thought, you might say, as a person, that I'm afraid the dog might bite the child, or I'm afraid the dog won't adjust to the child and there could be issues, they could not get along, something in that nature, because we know that as humans, our tendency is naturally going to be to worry a little bit more about a child over a dog. We care about the dog, but our natural tendency is going to be worried. When people have a baby, they're worried about the baby. GPT, earlier version, followed up and said, I'm worried they won't allow my dog into the hospital. And I'm worried that the doctors won't like my dog. So it couldn't grasp those weights appropriately. And it's because it didn't have enough training parameters. So the more information that they were able to put into these newer GPT versions, the better that kind of predictive analysis got. It read more information. It read more examples of people that had dogs having babies and can now more accurately predict something that feels logical to humans. But it's not using human logic. It's just using mass amounts of data around what humans have written and said.
It got much better. And then people started to notice, and then AI has become a thing, essentially, in the last 8 months or so.
Yeah, or it's become this type of AI has drawn attention to AI again, because we've talked about that. AI has been around for a very long time, and it's already integral to a lot of marketing. I mean, all of the algorithms that we use are versions of AI.
Right. Yeah. We just haven't been aware of it and up until this point, or we haven't been scared of it up until this point.
Exactly.
So let's talk about a few different topics that I think are some hot topics, and you've got some interesting ideas on. Let's talk about content and SEO. How will AI disrupt or change or help the content and SEO efforts that many marketers might find themselves working on in the day-to-day?
Yeah, I think disrupt is the right thought right now, and then change and dramatically change, destroy, whatever we want to say. There'll be a new version of SEO. That is my prediction. And SEO is something that has already been hijacked. I think any of us who have worked in SEO, I do not specialize in it. But I obviously lead teams that have specialists, and so I've had many conversations about all of the hacking and how are we going to get ranked number one. And it just makes me laugh thinking about my first job out of college. I was keyword stuffing as a content writer, and how far we've come to try and trick Google into getting our content where it needs to be. But the key to all of this is we're basing SEO and we're building SEO around human interaction. So what are humans typing in to the search bar? What are humans reading? So when you have a piece of content, it's not just about how Google can read it, but also can humans read it? Because Google is smart enough and is saying, if humans are bouncing off, or if this doesn't make sense for people, then we're going to downgrade it anyway. But also you, as the person with the website, need your website to make sense because someone's going to land on it. And so we're already seeing the steps where AI is being used to summarize different web pages, so they may never get to the web page. And we're also seeing different AI tools, Mind Studio included, that are scraping the web on behalf of the customer and returning results elsewhere. So if there's no longer a human searching for your content, then what is being used to search? Sometimes it's AI searches that have multiple queries instead of just the keyword, like what kind of dog is best to get along with kids, if we're using the same thought process there. The AI may send out 3 or 4 queries instead of just that one Google search. I may be using an AI that not only knows that I want a dog, but also has the context that I live in Colorado and an active dog would be fine. It knows I'm a runner because it's, tucked in that context. And so if I have an AI assistant that's Google scraping for me, or that's running a search for me and carrying all of that context, those things are now involved. So it's not a human alone that's searching. It's a whole contextual AI machine. And I
Hmm.
may never see the website. It may actually scrape lots of websites and then return those results to me. So as we go further down this process, what I imagine we'll see are more versions of, robots talking to robots, computers talking to computers. So when you're building out your SEO strategy, it won't be just about the keywords that humans are searching for or what content is ranking. It will be about, well, how is this most legible for someone's personal AI to scrape this and deliver the information that I want to return?
Hmm. Yeah, that's wild. Sounds like the future. So what you're saying essentially is your prediction is that people won't be interacting with websites in the same way that they are. And in fact, we might not actually visit websites, but our AIs who are trained and understand our lives will be finding the information that websites have historically held and then just bringing it to us in an entirely different medium.
Absolutely. I think the way we function now, we're scrolling through websites ourselves, and there's already companies, great company, AI built company is Mutiny. Mutiny personalizes websites based on the origin of their visitor. And so imagine in the beginning that going a step further. And so the website is being personalized not just on your origin point, but also what your own personal AI or maybe your AI Chrome extension, however it develops, whatever tools you're using, what it knows about you. And so it's personalizing all those websites. That might be an in-between step. But what I imagine would be even further down the line is that we aren't using websites as we know them at all, but instead this information that a company has uploaded. So if you think of your website more as a database versus, a very beautifully designed site that someone lands on. But if you think of it more as a database of information that can apply to all these different target groups and types of people, and my AI is coming in and saying, okay, well, that's my person, and this is also relevant. So I'm going to pull these 3 bits of information and I'm going to present it to my person in the most adjustable format that she likes. Maybe this is the way she likes to read. And we've discussed this already. It's in my context. She doesn't want to read large paragraphs, so I'm going to make little bullets for her, things like that.
So do you see a world where the visual elements of website are no longer necessary because it's purely a database?
Yes. I think that's one of my hopes. And, people can be optimistic or sad about that depending on their roles. But I do think one of the benefits of AI is to get us away from the screen, potentially. It's a different type of screen. It might be a more interactive personal assistant, but we want to spend less time in front of screens and more time doing higher level thinking, doing higher level strategy work. And so what are we wasting our time doing? Looking at websites, scouring for the information that we need, reading through way too dense of information. Emails is another one. Everyone I talk to, especially in the tech world, I think because it's extremely mind-boggling to a bunch of tech leaders that nobody has solved email yet. I can't tell you the number of times I've had conversations with tech leaders that are like, oh, by the way, if anyone knows a solution to email, I hate email. It's awful. You're scanning through like these little bites of information and you don't really have enough time to dive into it, and it's organized awfully. And so if anyone can solve email, and I think AI will be one of those that does solve email, that represents it to you in a more palatable format, because email right now is awful.
So you were talking about context and how AI might play a role in context in terms of our search queries and the things we're trying to learn across the internet. Just yesterday, I was Googling something, trying to find a solution to, I was in MailChimp and I was trying to do something that I didn't know how to do. And I was trying to what I thought was a very obscure task I was trying to accomplish in MailChimp. And I kept Googling and YouTubing my query trying to find a solution. But I couldn't find anything that was helping me. And I was like, man, if only someone, AI, like understood the context of what I'm seeing on my screen, then like it could help me find the solution. And it makes me wonder, if that's the case, then what happens to a platform like Google? Like, will we be going to google.com and searching things? Or like, do you have any insight into how search engines are reacting?
I think there's a reason Google is investing in AI, because I think they see the change coming. And I can't pretend to know what's going on inside Google. But I think there's a massive amount of highly intelligent people there that are definitely aware that this process is going to change. And that's why they're willing to do things like AI summarization on their pages, knowing that that does directly impact their business, uh, that impacts their ad business by doing that, by having less clicks, by having less sites to place ads on. Uh, it impacts the people that rely on Google ad search. They knew people weren't going to be thrilled if there were additional AI summaries and you weren't therefore landing on people's pages. They knew that was going to be a problem, but they did it. They did it anyway, because I think they see this future coming and they're trying to prepare themselves for a different world. I mean, that's my instinct. Is they're not going to hold on to the old just because it was most beneficial for them. I think the people at Google are probably highly aware that you can't stop change.
So we probably don't need to go this far into the weeds, but I am curious. So if websites are then just to become databases, how then do you build a website or a database, whatever we're calling it, that speaks to a wide variety of people? Because you're saying essentially what from a content and SEO perspective, if we're using the term SEO in this new world where an AI bot is going out and scraping the internet and finding relevant information for you specifically, how will people in SEO positions, whatever that looks like in the future, how do you make SEO relevant? And even sounds like it has to be even more targeted, even more specific. Even you have to have a much better understanding of who you're talking to in order to bring these two pieces together. Is that right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would agree, and I would say it's going to be even deeper, much deeper into organizing, like, how would you describe your product? Like, what are the key value props of your product, or what do customers rave about when it comes to your product, so that you're highlighting that and weighting that so that it finds similar customers. I think we'll see the same strategies within marketing, where if you try to market to everyone, you're not going to have a lot of success marketing to anyone. So leaning in to your ideal customers, making sure that your product explicitly talks about, that usage, and that you have, real reviews that are able to do that. Because I think AIs are going to be smart enough to include reviews. I mean, that's already happening, where AI can sort through mass amounts of reviews and compare products. And so if you're getting the right customer reviews, and if they're using the language that aligns with your product, then that's probably going to be a good thing for you, if they're using the keywords that you are promoting as well. But if they're saying, you're saying your shoe is the number one comfortable shoe in the world, and your customers are saying not comfortable, fell apart, and the AI is looking at your product page versus these reviews, I mean, you can absolutely assume it's going to tell me, the end user, 86% of the reviewers said this shoe fell apart. And even though the product page says that it's super comfortable, we think this other shoe over here might be better because, it's got 100 reviews and 75% of them mention comfort. And all of that needs to be evaluated heavily. So I think with a tool like, what AI is really good at is quick analysis. And so that's great for workers who do a lot of very tedious analysis, sorting through data, that kind of work in their job, because we'll be able to shorten that. But it's also bad for people who lean on bad behaviors in order to promote their product, because I think it will become increasingly more difficult to trick AI. Even if AI doesn't understand how to think like a human, it will be able to absorb mass amounts of information. And so lying to your customers, and I say that like everybody goes out to lie, but presenting a story that maybe isn't backed up by your customers will be more difficult.
It sounds like it's going to eliminate the BS.
I hope so. And I'm an optimist. So, I will be the first to say I look at this as like a tool to cut through the crap and to really return the numbers accurately and return the data accurately. You should still check everything, of course, but absorbing mass amounts of information in a way that a human can't. I mean, that's what robots are for. Is I don't have time to sort through 20 different web pages and compare 20 different products. And usually I won't. And I think that's really important. Usually I won't. So all of the former tricks of the trade, getting up to, the third page ranking on Google and having enough reviews to convince me that it's a good product. And maybe use an athlete that I recognize, that might be enough. But now if I have an AI that says, hey, you know what, I'm going to look at 50 products for you, and I'm going to analyze based on their reviews. I'm going to compare their product pages, and I'll do this in 90 seconds. What does that mean for people selling directly to consumers? It means your stuff better be up to snuff. I mean, you have to have your message on lock. I think that will be incredibly important.
Interesting. How does brand fit into all of this? Will brand become more or less important if it's easy for the audience, the customer, to discern a quality product from a less quality product? Is there a place for brand, or does brand even become more important?
I think brand and trust becomes even more important. In a world where first we're going to get drowned by mass amounts of content. We have AI that can write content. And even I know there are many folks out there that are saying to themselves right now, I can tell when AI wrote that blog post, and I can tell when AI wrote a LinkedIn post. And you can right now if a human doesn't edit that. But I will say I absolutely know teams that are already integrating AI to generate blog posts and content, and then, having a human come in and edit it and fix it up a little. And I cannot tell the difference.
Hey.
So with all that, we're getting overloaded by content. We have the ability to look at a ton more information in seconds. What drives the consumer to buy if, the AI discovers, again, like, here's 3 shoes that have everything you want, reviews are great, there's very little difference. And I keep going back to shoes because there's so many shoe companies, and shoes are something you buy often. And so what would drive a consumer to buy one brand over the other if they're nearly identical products? Brand trust, like believing in creators. So I think creators are very, very worried about their jobs right now with mass content production. But I think having a following that trusts you, and being a brand, as a brand, having a following that trusts you, that trusts your values, that trusts what you're building, will become even more important.
So I'm already seeing this to some extent in our industry. I wrote an article about this to kind of flesh out some of my thoughts, but it's on our website, and it's called, Is Your Jacket Unique? And I don't think this is a new idea at all, but the outdoor industry is so good at its craft. Like, almost every company makes a great product. There's no discernible difference between Patagonia, North Face, or Arc'teryx. Like, their jackets all perform really, really well. Like, you could take them to the park, or you could take them to the top of Everest, and they would all probably be about average. And so I feel like if our products are all great, which they should be, then what else is left? What else is left for the consumer to make a decision off of? price, availability, color. Sure, those things play an influence. But for me, it's like, it's the emotional attachment that you have to the brand. And you do that by telling stories and by building connection. We did a podcast interview with Jordan Williams recently, and he was talking about the idea of patience in marketing. And the most important thing that a brand can do is to create a feeling. And now that you're talking about what does this potential future look like, where all product is easily discernible, what's left? It's brand and feelings and the more ethereal things.
Yeah. And in a world where so many tasks and so much content will be fulfilled by AI, what stands out is true human connection, which AI cannot replicate. People would like to think it can, and that's why every AI company is being absolutely swarmed by people trying to build relationship bots, and things like that. But it cannot replicate, truly connecting with your customer, understanding their values. It can help you determine what those things are. So I think tools like using AI for sentiment analysis is going to be a big one for marketing. Understanding, and that's huge for small businesses, especially if you didn't previously have the tools. There are now, hundreds of tools, no-code tools like ours, where you can quickly build a sentiment analysis tool, something you may not have had time to do before. And you can understand what's important to your customers, and you can understand how they're feeling about your brand, and you can react to that in a human way. So it's finding those moments where, what data do I need? I now have the ability to get it. And then how do I connect further with my customers? How do I take care of them with a higher touch, higher level way? Because now I don't have to do all this other crap that AI is going to do for me.
Tell me more about the sentiment analysis. What does that look like, and what does that measure? Like, what are the results from something like that?
It depends on what you're specifically looking for. So if you have a lot of reviews from disparate places, it's very simple for AI to go through, collect those, and basically summarize the differences in what people are saying, and how they compare platform from platform. So maybe for some reason, buyers on a certain platform are having different experiences with your brand. Maybe it's a retailer that you're selling through, and so that might point something out. But you'll also be able to find larger patterns about how people describe your brand, your product, and their general feelings about it. And this is what AI is very good at, is taking mass amounts of information, summarizing it, sorting it, and then replying to you in a format where it might point out that, hey, all these reviews on rei.com are 3 out of 5 stars, versus on Moose Jaw, they're closer to 4 out of 5 average. Should we dive into this? And you can have a conversation with this information where you're diving in deeper and saying, okay, well, what are the top things that are mentioned on REI, and what are the top things mentioned on Moose Jaw? And you still need that human aspect of higher level thinking to engage with AI at these levels. But there are these incredibly impressive tools that you can build just by pointing the AI, hey, look here, look here, look here, and then let's talk about it. And you can walk away with an incredible understanding of your customers that you did not have before, that your team didn't have time for before. I mean, I never did any of that type of work because I worked on small teams. So,
wow. Yeah, interesting. I want to go back to content really quick. I think you mentioned, or you told me a story, you were talking with someone, and some marketing team was bragging that they had created like 80 blog posts in a day. Maybe, was this you? Does this sound like you? Or
it could
maybe
have been me. I definitely know the marketing teams that are doing that. Yeah.
Okay. What I wonder is, will there just be an influx of I mean, there's already so much content out there. Everyone is producing it in ridiculous amount of quantities.
Yeah.
Is there just going to be, like, are we going to 20x the amount of content that exists, and or will we 20x the amount of content that's created, and then we realize that not all content is created equal, and then the cream rises to the top, and people realize, oh, I have to go deep. I really have to be an expert at this content. Like, it has to be quality, and then the level of content that's created is less, it's a less versus a more situation, or
Yeah.
are we just going to be flooded even more?
Yeah, I think we're going to be flooded even more, but we're already flooded. That's nothing new. And what I think will be interesting is we've trained ourselves. I'll make some generational jokes, but I think people will relate to it. I'm a millennial. I have a different understanding of what's clickbait and what's not compared to my parents. They struggle a little bit more with that. So I imagine as we dive into this new world with AI and there's even more content produced, we will start to develop that understanding of this is written by AI, or it just feels off to me, or this image doesn't feel right. Those of us who have to learn as adults will probably struggle a little bit more, but I think as we continue to go on, we'll gain an AI literacy. So I think that will be a sorting mechanism in itself, where as we gain that AI literacy, as we understand what's good and what's not and what's just crap, people say GPT-4 has a tone that they can recognize now. And I believe that. We will start to be able to self-sort, and that content won't perform as well. And I think it goes back again to brand trust, where what are you doing with all that content? That's the question. What are you doing? What are you trying to say? And if you're pushing all this content out to your audience, for what? I mean, for clickbait, then you're going to get clickbaity followers. But if you're generating real valuable content, if you're using AI as a tool to help you generate more content because you were completely strapped before, but that content is good. That content, was reviewed by a human, or it is in line with what you're trying to say as a brand, then AI is an effective tool. But those
Definitely.
who are just going to use AI to mass produce a ton of crap, it might work for a little, but we already have some of that literacy. We already start to recognize that on LinkedIn, on TikTok. When you're being spammed. And I think we'll continue to know that, and that won't perform.
Do you feel like a site like LinkedIn or any other social media will start to implement, I don't know what you would call it, but like preventing AI content from being distributed, and trying to retain it purely from a human creation standpoint?
I don't think so. Because one, if it's good content, it probably wouldn't matter if it was generated by AI. I think LinkedIn and other social platforms try their best to build their algorithms so that useful information is being shared. They get behind because people find new ways to hack those algorithms. They have for a long time. I can't tell you the number of people that have reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, I'm going to make you LinkedIn famous. And, here's I've had conversations in these chats, like, yeah, tell me how you're going to do that. And it's, okay, well, me and 10 other influencers are going to comment on every single one of your posts. So there's always ways that people are trying to hack, whether it's through content or using other, large influencers. And those teams are going to be trying to match that every step of the way. They're going to come back and say, okay, well, we noticed this is happening. We know people are trying to hack us this way, so now we're going to build in algorithmic blockers for it. But if AI content is interesting and people like it, then I don't see why they would potentially say, like, no AI driven content, because
Sure.
I mean, I guess my question would be why. I just feel like they would lean on their normal core values of, is it good? Is it worthy of being shared? If not, then it won't perform.
And maybe there'd be an entirely new site that's dedicated to human-centered forms of content, right? Like it's the equivalent of the blue check mark for a social profile. It's like you can guarantee that everything that comes from this profile or this person is from their own fingers, if you will.
Yeah, or at least, right. I mean, we have people using ghostwriters. We have people using assistants. I just don't feel like AI is really any different. And I think
Sure.
it's also really useful, especially when it comes to video content or summarizing certain points. I would love to see a world where LinkedIn leans even further into AI. I mean, we already have translate on LinkedIn, so if a post is in a different language, you can get a different summary. But if there's someone I trust, again, we're coming back to brand, but let's say it's, Sam Altman, and I want to read his post. I don't care if he generated it by AI. It's his name, it's his brand. But maybe LinkedIn says, okay, this is kind of a very tech heavy post, and do you want us to downgrade the tech level a little bit? You want this in layman's terms? And I would be like, yes, please, because I want to be able to keep up at the level that's right for me. So I hope we see more tools utilizing AI to increase information and communication. And if it has a little warning that, like, hey, some of this might have been altered or adjusted by AI, to clarify, sure, that could be cool.
Yeah. What about gated versus ungated content? How does that fit into this discussion? Does it?
I'm sure it does. Cool. I'm sure it does.
Well, do you feel like
I'm
do
trying
you
to
feel like there will be
remember.
more gated content, or will everyone ungate them,
Oh,
ungate it? Like the New York Times, Forbes,
right.
Ad Age. It's all gated content that you have to pay to play. How will those sorts of publishers, like, where do you think they'll fall into all of this?
With AI, we'll definitely see an increase in gated content. And this comes back again to trust, and we've already seen that because of the mass influx in content creation and spamming journalism and clickbait, that trusted publications are gating their journalism. So the New York Times is, as we mentioned, are gated, and people are frustrated about paying for access to what formerly felt very accessible or free or easy to find. But I think we're going to have to learn to pay for the things that feel most trustworthy to us, for the sources that feel most trustworthy to us. Because as we know, AI is going to be used and abused especially when it comes to journalism and written content. And so I could very easily see, having my own personal AI, we're a few years in the future. I've got my AI that's summarizing news for me. I don't actually want my AI to sort through the whole of the internet, especially when it comes to something like news. I would much rather the AI goes to publications that I feel are trustworthy, or sources that I believe in, that I know they have strong journalism. And I would like recaps from those sources, not the entirety of the internet. And we can kind of directly compare this to how AIs are trained and the risks behind many of them. So we know GPT-4 trained on, let's call it, the whole of the internet, including places like Reddit. Now Reddit is trying to lock down access to all of its content because it was used and abused, so to say. But think about the things that live on Reddit that might have informed the predictive nature of GPT-4.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is scary. And so we know for a fact that AI has a lot of bias, and that AI is
Hey,
not something or when I say AI in this sense, I'm specifically talking about those language models, but we know they're biased because the internet is biased. And so we should assume that trusted sources of information will continue to be gated, and we'll have to sort through, where do I want to get my information from, versus, allowing our AI to scoop the whole of the internet, because that is problematic. And you don't always know where you're getting it from. Now, if you know that about AI and you say, I specifically upon delivery, so if I build a no code scraper in Mind Studio and I ask it to scrape about, just scrape Google for, interesting stories about whatever event, I can tell that AI, I also want you to deliver those sources for me. So when you're giving me the information, you need to source where that came from so that I
Okay.
understand and I can run my human detector over what's delivered and say, okay, I trust these sources. And so I understand what's being delivered to me.
It almost seems like gated content could become more valuable. Uh,
I think so.
and if there's a world of infinitely more content out there, then as we've said, throughout this whole episode, then the institutions that you trust are the things that you rely on and that you go to. And if we're all overwhelmed with even more content, then maybe we'd be willing to spend $10 a month to get really good quality, content or journalism from a site that we believe in and we trust.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about, the frustration doctors have had with people self-diagnosing using the internet because there's so much misinformation out there. So that's already been a problem. So now with AI, we have the whole of the internet at our hands, and you're asking for answers to questions. Well, who do you trust? And maybe if you're wondering about a training program or you're wondering about certain workouts, it makes those creators, those athletes, those brands more important. And that trusted gated content, whether it's gated simply by being a customer or giving an email address or whatever it may be. But those communities that build trust, I think, will become even more important. Yeah.
You touched on email, and I want to come back to this because I know you're passionate about email and how much you despise
Who
it.
isn't?
Uh, I feel like I'm old school. I honestly still like email. But but tell me more. How do you feel like email is going to be disrupted?
Yeah. So email is horrible. You must not have enough people asking you for money. I think email is a crime of opportunity where, people have they try to get to the top of your inbox, they abuse it. Gmail's tried to sort into promotions versus, this or that, and you can put things into spam, but it becomes a default inbox a default to-do list. Your inbox becomes a default to-do list, I think, often for a lot of people, myself included, even though I have a whole other to-do list in 3 other places. And the messages are not always clear. So the way people communicate isn't clear. It's not formatted in the way that you want it. My CEO, Dimitri, who is former CTO of MySpace, he complains about this all the time. Like, he gets bombarded with emails and he's like, I just need a summary of what they want and, maybe some ideas on if it's a fit for us. And then I need someone to go do something with that email. But the way it comes into your inbox, and it's just like usually a novel length. I'm laughing because I sent you, Cole, a novel length email. And I really wish you had AI that could have summarized my thoughts a little bit more clearly for you and then followed up with some action items. Like, we lean on email as a productivity tool when it's not. It's a message system and it's not formatted well at all. And so you are left with this inbox of things that become tasks that maybe shouldn't become tasks. And no, we just need a little bit of logic applied. And I really hope I actually think I know one of my team members is trying to build a workflow in Mind Studio in order to better sort and actionize email. So stay tuned for that because it is a pain for most people.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Yeah, I can see how it would not be difficult for a little bit of logic, a little bit of data to then have an AI tool help you filter and manage your inbox.
Yeah.
Either it's auto replying or it's auto declining,
Perfect.
inbound cold sales, or if you're getting, similar messages or updates from team members, like there's ways you could automatically engage and reply to some of these consistent ongoing things.
Yeah. And I think about like you can set up Google rules, and I'm not saying there aren't some solutions, but nobody really does it because it's pain in the butt. You can set up rules to sort different emails. Like if I said I always want to see emails from my CEO at the top of my inbox, I could do that. But that's not really helpful. I would love to come in the morning and say, hey, you got 3 messages from Dimitri. These are the things he's looking for in these emails, so that I don't have to go through and read every single email. And maybe they're long chains too. So if the AI could summarize, like, this is what's happening in the chain, and this is Dimitri's action item from you. Think about, that was taking me hours a week, like easily 5+ hours. I could also say to my AI sorting system, hey, we're really on the lookout for YouTube trainers. We want to train people how to use this product, which is true anyway. So any YouTube trainers, reach out to me. But I get a ton of emails from newsletters, publications, anyone who wants me to spend money to communicate with their audience. And I generally don't have time to read them all thoroughly. So I would love if my AI said, hey, I know, because I'm actually connected to your marketing priorities, task list and Asana. And I notice like you're looking for YouTube creators, and look, you have 3 in your inbox. Here you go. Things like that. They seem so simple, but nobody's really done it. And these are all things that, again, are not risky. You're not using AI in a way that is scary. You're using the ability of AI, which is an ability to summarize, to reformat. So the predictive language that ChatGPT can output, would I ask it directly, just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, can you summarize this historical event? Maybe, but I would question that it was 100% accurate because I don't know the sources. But what it is really good at is if I say, can you look at my inbox and summarize what's going on there? And just stick to that. Don't use the rest of the internet. I don't care about the rest of the internet. Just look at this and create a task list for me and help me prioritize this. And you can use the ability of that predictive language to adjust everything else in your life that is language-based, text-based.
Yeah, interesting. All right, I'm coming around to this new model of email that you're proposing. This doesn't actually sound...
I'm going to build it for you. I'm not even going to have one of the engineers do it. I say we have no-code platform. I'm going to build it for you.
I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go. We could talk about this, I feel like, for another 2 or 3 hours.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, but this is really fascinating. So to kind of close the conversation, what do you feel like will get in the way of brands or individuals from embracing this? Who will get left in the dust? Because from your perspective, like, these things are coming regardless if we want them or not, and we need to be aware. We need to be learning how to use them. Who's going to lose?
Who's going to lose? I think the important thing right now is to familiarize yourself with AI tools, to try and you don't have to be super technical. You also don't have to learn 1,000 different GPT prompts and memorize them. And use a no-code tool. Go in, watch some videos, understand what can be produced, and start thinking about what's really tedious in my workflow. What do I not want to do every day? And it's just awful and it's really redundant and I feel like a robot could do it. Start thinking about how can I make that happen for myself? Because the employees using AI are going to be 100% more effective. because they're not wasting their time, able to prioritize better, able to be more productive. So I think from an individual standpoint, those left behind are the ones that are plugging their ears and saying, la la la, I don't want to do it. It sounds scary and I've heard it's dangerous. It's a tool. Learn how to use it. We learned how to use different types of performance marketing over the past 15, 20 years. Think of how much marketing has changed. So I'm not sure why there's so much fear about this new tool, but learn how to use it. I think those who stand to benefit a lot are small teams that haven't had the same access to data analysis or understanding of their customers. They don't have the bandwidth. And we get this a lot. I think about sales, for example, sales team members who the most productive, valuable thing for them to be doing is talking to customers 1v1. Like if you're a salesperson, if you're a sales rep, you want to be talking to customers 1v1. What they don't want to do is analyze the last 50 emails they sent and figure out what had the best open rates and what drove responses. Marketers might be a little better at it, but they still don't have a ton of time either. So things like that, where if you could have a couple takeaways each day where AI came to you and said, hey, the last 50 emails you sent to potential retailers, these were the ones that had the highest response rate. Like, this is what's working, and just communicated with you and helped optimize your flow. Those are people and small businesses that are going to benefit. I think if people get very wrapped up in the fear and don't try to integrate AI into their company sooner rather than later, they will get left behind, unfortunately.
If you had to predict how soon some of this stuff will take place, and I guess I'm thinking specifically, like, how long will it be before what you imagine a new website will look like? Like, how long before a world where that exists, where my AI is scraping your internet, your database, and pulling relevant information for me? Like, is that a year away? Is that 5 years away?
I feel like it's 2 years away.
Really? But that's soon.
Yeah, I think there's still the learning curve, as we've discussed, but there's a ton of different AI tools emerging. And so the question isn't how fast can the technology be built, because I feel that technology already exists, and it's more about getting folks comfortable with using it and having them understand that, the different ways, well, how do I upload essentially, or how do I track versions of myself that are relevant in a way that feels secure to me? What is my profile? We have a lot of people making a fuss about, I don't want it to know everything about me. I mean, what do you think Google and Amazon have been trying to do for the past 5-10 years? Like, every decision you make, every purchase you buy is filed away. I would much rather have control over something that's my AI profile, and we'll see who builds this, but my AI profile that, I understand what likes and dislikes and features are in this AI that will help me have a better experience and deliver better results to me. I would prefer that, but some people would just want to continue to be scraped by Amazon for the rest of time because they don't recognize it's happening as much. But I think once people get more comfortable with it and see how much faster it makes their lives, it will be quick.
Okay, so last question. Back in the Industrial Revolution, there was these theories that with the advancement of machines and technology, people would have idle time. And philosophers and psychologists were actually concerned with how much idle time people would have, because the machines would take our place and we could accomplish the same amount of work, but in a much faster time. And people were concerned about what we would do as humans with all this idle time while the machines were cranking out parts. Obviously, we know that is not true. We've just filled our time with more things to do. This feels like it could be the next revolution in terms of how we use our time and automations to get things done. do you feel like we're just going to fall into the same trap of humans and just do more with the amount of time that we have, or will this actually force us to work less?
I think it comes at a good time because we are also riding this wave of increased employee awareness of work-life balance. And, I'm speaking from a US perspective. I know how other countries feel about the US. And also shout out, thank you, Gen Z, for putting your foot down. Really appreciate how much you guys are advocating for employee rights. I think it comes at a good time where we could actually see more idle time. I mean, we've seen an increased number of companies that are moving to 4-day work weeks already as it is. We see companies that are starting to learn that, pizza parties and a nicer office don't really matter to staff. Like, staff wants freedom to be treated like an adult. I mean, when we talk about the remote work push, I'm a strong believer that people actually do want to engage socially to some extent with their coworkers, to have those very curated, optimized meeting points with their teammates that are used effectively. You're not just in the office to be a butt in the chair. But what they absolutely don't want, and what I absolutely don't want, is to go back into an office so that someone can scold me if I'm gone for 75 minutes because I had some errands to run. We want to be adults. We want to have freedom and use our time wisely. And so this kind of feeling and mentality to me, seems like it's only getting stronger. And so if we have AI rising in parallel, I hope that we can use increased optimization and a reduction of very tedious tasks and an opportunity to be super productive. And I hope we end up spending more time with our families and reducing work hours, because we've moved past the point of, normal work levels. I think we could all agree. Like, the world, you have a family, and the 40-hour work week was not built for two people to be working 40 hours. Like, it feels nearly impossible. We're seeing a lot of folks with burnout. So I hope we're in the right mental state to actually reduce the amount of time that everyone is working.
I love it. Sounds like an optimistic
take. It
take.
is an optimistic. I say I hope because I know there's always going to be those pushers, those people that just see it as more time to get more done. I mean, we all have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce. That's what I've heard. So
amazing. Well, Liz, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat and share some of your ideas and share a little bit about your perspective. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with before we sign off?
Sure. We do actually have, I will be helping run a no-code AI for marketers webinar in a late February. I'll have to get you the exact date. But if you are curious and want to learn more about the type of workflows you can build, or, how as a marketer do I even approach integrating AI into my team, my personal workday, then that's a good place to start. There's also a ton of free videos that I can link you to our YouTube channel. And I would just encourage everyone, please familiarize yourself with any form of AI. It doesn't have to be Mind Studio. Go start learning about it. Don't be afraid. It's here. It's a good tool. Use it.
Amazing. Well, Liz, thank you. We'll link some of those links down in the show notes for people to take a look. If folks want to look you up, maybe you don't want to give your email address since we've discussed how you feel about email, but where can people find you?
Sure. Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. So it's just Liz Esche, Esche. So you can definitely message me there. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. So that's probably the best place.
Amazing. All right, Liz, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the future. Who knows? Maybe this conversation next time will be, I don't know. I can't imagine what it'll be, but AI will probably be speaking for us.
Exactly. We won't be here.
All right. Take care.